Welcome back to Hard Facts.
There's so much we do with Europe and European countries that the month of May, which is celebrated as the Europe Month, should be one that Nigeria should pay attention to. I know that the 9th of May is Europe Day, and they're going to celebrate a week and a month and looking at quite a lot of issues in there. And we'll also look at our relations with Europe and European countries and the European Union here in Nigeria. And I am delighted to mention that I've got in the studio with me the European Union Ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, His Excellency Gautier Mignot, with me in the studio. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, for having me in Nigeria Info.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Delighted to have you in the studio with us. And I trust that you're having a fantastic time in Nigeria.
Absolutely. It's been a
food, weather, and people.
8 months.
Oh, fantastic. 8 months is a long time to settle in and just enjoy our food and our culture and all of that.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. So we're celebrating Europe Month in May. Is there a particular reason for that? Why we kind of like celebrate Europe Month in the month of May?
Well, 9th of May is Europe Day. And today it's a special year because we are celebrating 75 years of the Schuman Declaration, which was adopted on 9th of May 1950, and which was the starting point of the European integration, of the creation of what is today the European Union. And this year, it's also a special geopolitical context where we think it's important to remind our citizens and remember ourselves and remind our partners what we stand for in Europe in these troubled times. And also we want very much to engage more with Nigerians as a whole. And so we've decided during this whole month of May not just to have the Europe Day, but have a Europe Month. And together with my fellow member states ambassadors, the ambassador of our 19 member states represented in Nigeria out of 27, to have many engagements with media, like I'm having today, with universities on culture, not only in Abuja, but around the country, in Sokoto, in Kano, in Lagos. So, yeah, this will be a busy month.
Indeed.
Speaking about Europe and Nigeria.
Indeed. And just before we look at, the geopolitical issues in Europe, let's understand what this means for us also. What does Nigeria represent for the European Union? I mean, the fact that you have a significant presence in our country and in Africa, it says a lot. Indeed.
And Nigeria for us is a key player, a key partner, not only of the future, but also already in the present. The other day, I had the honor to meet His Excellency the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, and he reminded us that already 1 out of 4 people in Africa are Nigerians. And in 2050 it will be 1/3.
We're a lot.
Exactly. And so you are a big player in Africa and in the world, and you are a country with a great potential. I mean, not only a vast population, but also a thriving digital sector, to name just one example, and a very young population. So you are a country of the future, and today we live in a multipolar world, and this is good that other nations, have emerged over the last few decades. But at the same time, we are seeing how some superpowers want to impose their views, their interests, even crushing others and not caring much about others' interests, especially the weakest. And we in Europe profoundly reject this worldview, and we think that many other nations also reject it, including Nigeria. And so we must unite and stand up and defend a rules-based order, defend a vision of the world based on free trade, fair trade, a fair repartition of power, of economic opportunities, and based on sustainability, sustainable development to preserve our planet. And so for us it is very important nowadays to engage with traditional partners like African partners, but to renew and strengthen our partnership, and also new partners, and that's what we've been doing in the last few months. For instance, finalizing negotiation that had lasted for 25 years with Mercosur countries in Latin America, but also in other continents. And so we want very much also to strengthen our partnership with Nigeria.
Strengthening partnership with Nigeria. And we've seen quite some over the years, even down to scholarship and program for Nigerian students. We've seen that, another sort of partnership with the country. I'll get to talk more, ask a few more questions around that, but just to take a step back, looking at some of the things you say about rejecting worldview, it takes us, because earlier on, just before we started this session with you, we were looking at the Russia-Ukraine situation and the fact that the mineral deal agreement is going through with the United States and what it means for Ukraine. And it'll be interesting to look at the position of the European Union. I know it's your month and we're building up to your day, but these are very important things that the EU and Europe, as a significant body, should, have a position, given the trouble in that region in Europe precisely at this point in time. So what's the EU's definite position, particularly between Ukraine, Russia?
And Russia. Well, the situation is very simple. Ukraine is a democratic country, a peaceful nation, which was brutally attacked by Russia, not 3 years ago, but already in the past. But 3 years ago, they woke up in the morning with a full-scale invasion, but what was considered as one of the most powerful armies in the world, with a clear objective, which is still Putin's objective, which is annihilating, destroying Ukraine as an independent nation. Yeah. And so the Ukrainians are fighting for their independence, their sovereignty as an independent country, and their territorial integrity. And they've been doing this with really heroism and a lot of dignity, because you haven't heard or very, very little about war crimes committed by Ukrainian soldiers against Russia. We have heard plenty, and we hear plenty every day, of war crimes committed by Russia. Yeah. And of course, as any war, it will certainly have to end with negotiation at some point, because Russia still will be there. But it is very important, if we want to have a lasting peace, a just peace, that it is based on the principles of the UN Charter. And this is what the EU is insisting on, backing Ukraine, so that any solution that is found to this war, and absurd war, and we hope that it will be found soon, is based on these principles of respect for sovereignty, respect for territorial integrity, because else it will not be a lasting peace. And of course, for the Ukrainians, the U.S. support is also key. And so I think President Zelensky very cleverly, skillfully is trying to keep this U.S. support with the new U.S. administration. And he knew it had to go through this deal on critical minerals, and that's what they've negotiated.
Yes, well, Nigerians, we were talking about it, and they did have an opinion, and some people just felt like perhaps Europe was not asserting itself enough and giving enough support to Ukraine, but you're saying solidly behind them. And then we've had people who are saying Ukraine should end the war, and we're like, well, they're not perceived as the aggressor. They didn't start it, so how would they end it if it's not going to start from the Russian end? But maybe we're just being naive in this part of the world, because I understand how complex the situation is.
It's like if burglars break into your house and neighbors tell you, "Oh, stop the burglary, please, no? Let them have their way and take whatever they want in your house, and stop the burglary because it's making noise, you prevent me from sleeping, No, I mean, it's not a valid argument. We want to end the war, and there is a very easy way to end the war. It's for Russia to stop its aggression against Ukraine. Russia signed, when Ukraine became independent in 1991, solemnly treaties where it promised respect Ukraine's sovereignty and integrity, and it has trampled these treaties and all other agreements on which the European security architecture is based. And they have disrupted not only the security in Europe, they have disrupted important value chains in the world, especially on food, fertilizers, They have bombed the whole infrastructure for Ukraine to export its grains, especially to Africa. And they have obliged to spend dozens and dozens of billions of euros in this absurd war, this absurd aggression. And it's money that could have been used for fighting poverty, fighting climate change. It's a crime against the planet. Even more than, well, crime against humanity. It has a specific legal meaning, so I will not dwell on this territory, but a crime against the planet, I would say.
Indeed. If you're just tuning in, we're having a conversation around Europe Month in May. And I've been talking with Ambassador Gautier Mignot, the European Union ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, to look at what the month mean and what Nigeria represents in the EU. We're also looking at geopolitical issues, global geopolitical issues, and the focus is being on what's happening, particularly Russia, Ukraine, and what the EU stand is. We've had Ambassador speak to that, and hoping that whatever is being done would end it, because it's really shocking. It's dragged on for over 3 years now. Now, coming back to Nigeria, we do have EU-Nigerian partnership. What should citizens expect going forward from our partnership?
Well, first, we have a very strong partnership already. The European Union is Nigeria's first trade partner. 28% of Nigeria's foreign trade is done with the EU, with a big benefit for Nigeria, because Nigeria has a huge trade surplus with the EU, more than $10 billion. The EU is also the main export market for non-oil products. Of course, the biggest share of our trade is gas and oil, but we are also those who buy more non-oil products to Nigeria. And in investment, it's historically the same. 1/3 of existing foreign direct investment in Nigeria comes from the EU. But we want to go further, in particular in investment. We want to accelerate it, because we know that's what the Nigerians, the authorities, and people are expecting. More opportunities, more prosperity and development. And for this, we have to remove barriers. Some material ones, I will say, legislative or so, and I know that the federal government in Nigeria is very much aware of this and trying to tackle this. And there are others which are perhaps more psychological also, which are linked to the image that Nigeria has as perhaps not the safest place for investment. And I think this is very important to find this image. And so we have to discuss together to see how we can do this. And we want also to accelerate investment through our cooperation. This is something new we are doing around the world, not only in Africa and Nigeria. It's called the Global Gateway Strategy. And it's about keeping our commitments in terms of cooperation. We're not decreasing our effort. And we are still helping also the poorest with humanitarian aid or projects in education or health. But we want also to articulate more a great part of our cooperation with the private sector, together with our member states also, blend grants and loans with low interest rates, etc., to boost investment, articulate with hopefully private companies, private EU company that would like to invest in Nigeria. So we want to bring our cooperation to another level, because it's not only about official aid. We have to leverage also private investment. If you want to reach what we call the Sustainable Development Goals, we need also private funding, not only governmental funding. And of course, at the end of the day, we know that our assistance is a drop in the ocean. Nigeria is a big country, a huge country, and the future of Nigeria lies in the hands of Nigerians, their governments, and the citizens. And so what we trying to do also is to give some technical assistance to improve public policies, design and implementation. So of course we follow very much orientations of the governments, the federal government, the state governments, because it's very important for Nigerians to be in the driving seat. We're not inventing projects that are not approved and articulated with local stakeholders. So it's a whole new effort we are doing together with our member states or European Investment Bank. We have a new bank also coming in Nigeria, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
EBRD is coming to Nigeria. Nigeria has become the 77th shareholder of the bank, so it will not be only a beneficiary of the bank's funding, specifically for the private sector. The EBRD is oriented mostly toward the private sector, but Nigeria will also be a shareholder of the bank. So this is very important because it enhances or offer, let's say, of development finance in Nigeria. And they will have a big office in Lagos opening in the next few months.
In the next few months. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And also interesting how you put it, because half the time we always think of our relations with Western countries and highly developed industrialized countries as like Nigeria receiving hands out, they're coming to give us loan, they're going to give us support. Well, I love the perspective of also looking at that, giving that technical assistance, and we're having like a partnership of some sort where Nigeria does have something to offer also.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking, because I mean, partnership is in both sense, and what do we expect from Nigeria somehow? Well, first, our basic interest here in West Africa and in Nigeria is for this region to be successful, to be prosperous, to be stable. So, if you manage this, we will have reached our basic objective. Then, of course, having these partners at international level, defending the same values, the same vision of the world, the same model of society based on civil liberties, on free economy and social inclusion, is also of great value for us. And then, of course, we want to do business, or companies want to invest also to make profits, but to make profits in a sustainable way and profitable for the country, not exploiting just resources and taking them out of the country, but we want to develop value chains. For instance, in dairy or in cocoa, we are also working now to try to develop these value chains in the country. Voilà. So I would say our interests are very clear and very transparent. We're not here to exploit the country. We want to help this region to be more stable, because all destinies are intertwined. We are neighbors, and if things go wrong here, we will feel the consequences in Europe. If terrorism or poverty spread here in the region, in Nigeria, we will feel the consequences in Europe, and vice versa. If Europe is weakened, if Europe enters in crisis, there will be negative consequences here. So, voilà, we share a common destiny.
All right. Well, indeed, that's true. When you talked about the consequences, I remember when we used to have, maybe not just from Nigeria or sub-Saharan Africa, but we used to see a lot of, irregular migrants go through the Mediterranean and filling up Europe. And then the conversation was like, well, why are there a lot of people going through that route to get to Europe? And they're like, well, if there's instability and unemployment and poor governance, and we're not getting interventions from Europe, you're going to feel the consequences of it, because you're going to have a lot of people in your hands. And then we've had over time where the certain European Union position as to, okay, what can be done to ensure that you get your stability, you create jobs, and you develop this place so that we don't have too many of these people coming in irregularly into Europe. So you will feel the impact.
Absolutely. But also, these people-to-people contacts are important. We don't want just all Nigerians to stay in their country and not visit Europe, or not come to Europe. That's not the idea. But we want these migration flows to be managed on both sides. We want to accept who is coming to our territory or not, and of course the same is valid for Nigeria and other African countries. Migration is part of the partnership, comprehensive partnership we want to build with Nigeria. In our mutual interest, we have needs in Europe, in our labor market in particular, because of demography. We have an aging population, so we need workforce from abroad, and we have already a lot. and we will need more. And at the same time, Nigeria also needs its skilled workforce. So we don't want to, brain drain Nigeria or other countries. So that's why it's important to manage this together, in an organized way. There is an international process called the Rabat process.
The what process?
Rabat process on migration. And it is now co-chaired this year by Spain and Nigeria. And in a few days, the first meeting under this Rabat process will be held here in Nigeria, and will of course participate. So there is it's really a question for dialogue between especially Europe and Africa. And with Nigeria, we want to build an exemplary partnership, and we think it's a good model case to do that.
Indeed. That's good to know. Well, some comments have come in while we're talking, and I know it'll be just random. We did talk about the global geopolitical issues. We did talk about Europe, Russia, Ukraine, and then someone is talking. Well, I don't know, but I would read out the question anyway. Good afternoon to His Excellency. While I was talking about Russia and Ukraine, I'm a little curious. How is the EU and Europe supporting Ukraine? Is it with the military, intelligence, or funds? Because it just feels as if the United States is the only country intervening strongly. And if, Ukraine will be allowed into NATO, is this something you can respond to?
Well, in fact, we are supporting Ukraine more than the United States. If you total all the support, in all these areas that were mentioned in the question. First, humanitarian support, and we are also having some 5 million of Ukrainian citizens who had to flee the invasion, especially women and children in our territory. Humanitarian aid, macroeconomic aid, we have a very sizable. EU aid to Ukraine amount more or less at $100 billion. The truth is, somehow I'm ashamed to mention this, and I'm frustrated, and I'm angry, to say that we had to spend all this money because of the Russian invasion to Ukraine. And it's more that we could have spent for many other better causes. And we are supporting also with military. Actually, it's the first time that the European Union as such is financing weapons, military equipment to support a third country. And we are doing also a lot of reconstruction already in Ukraine to rebuild schools, for instance, which have been bombed, or churches which have been bombed by Russia. And if Ukraine will access to NATO, well, that's an easy question for me, because the European Union is not a member of NATO. Most of our member states are members of NATO, but we are not. So I can't, of course, speak about this. I think this is a question. But it has been a false pretext by Russia, because it was not on the agenda. Ukraine had applied to NATO, but it was not the agenda when the full-scale invasion happened. So it's completely a false excuse, and it was not to threaten Russia. All the countries which have joined NATO, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, and the Baltic countries, they've never threatened Russia. On the contrary, a few people know that inside the European Union there is an enclave of Russian territory called the enclave of Kaliningrad. It's right in the middle of the European Union. Well, we have always respected the integrity of this territory, of this Russian territory, and we keep respecting it. So imagine if the same would exist in Russia. It would have been long that they would have seized it.
Indeed. All right, and Ismail Isa from Airport Road says, the ambassador said quite a lot and touched on Russia. The EU, in comparison, looks the other way regarding the sustained daily aggression against the Palestinian people. Well, that is coming up. Does the EU not acknowledge the well-documented war crimes against humanity, and the ICJ's finding of possible genocide? What is the EU doing about the daily denial to the Palestinians of food and medicines and other essentials? Should explain why it should not see the EU collectively act on this? It just feels, okay, that's Ismail Sam is asking about the Middle East right now and the Palestinian situation.
Yeah, I'm very happy to answer this question because it's, of course, a key issue already today. And there are other conflicts in the world we could speak about, in Sudan or in Somalia, Yemen. But this one, of course, is particularly cruel and breaks our hearts. We should not forget first that the European Union, it's I don't know why fingers are always pointed at us. When we are those who historically and still now bring most support to the Palestinian people in terms of humanitarian aid in particular. Most humanitarian aid comes from the EU and its member states, And there are other countries which are very generous in words, but when it comes to deeds or support, even those who have resources, well, not so much, In the EU, for foreign policy, we have a rule which is unanimity. We need unanimity of the 27 member states. Okay. And on this conflict, there are differences between the position of some of our member states. So this is why we don't have a complete, full position on this, but we have some minimal agreement with this, and in particular the respect for international humanitarian law and the free access of humanitarian aid to civil populations and the protection of civil populations. It's something we've always demanded, and we keep demanding. Now, sometimes some make a parallel and comparison between the situation in Ukraine and the situation in the Middle East. And here there is one very important difference, is that Israel was victim of an aggression initially on the 7th March 2023.
Yeah.
7th October, sorry.
7th of October.
7th of October.
Yes.
And so legally, in international law, there is a principle of legitimate self-defense, which apply in this case, as it applies actually for Ukraine. The difference is that Ukraine never attacked Russia. So that's the big difference, legally speaking, between the two conflicts. And there are still like 60, I think, Israeli hostages, civilians in the hand of Hamas, being tortured every day. That doesn't mean, of course, that Israel can do whatever they want in response, and they are to abide by international law, and this is something that we've always said. Now, several of the member states have had more positions of more criticisms toward Israel, others of more support. And as EU representative, I have to express what the common EU line is.
Indeed. Right, so different state, and you have to take the position of the state is the response to that particular question. Okay, if you want to ask a question, I see my phone line's buzzing, or someone also wants to guess your opinion on the trade war and the position of Europe. But let's get to hear this caller. 0700 951 0000. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, Kimberly. Good afternoon, His Excellency, the Ambassador of
European Union, Nigeria and ECOWAS.
In the studio, it is Bakar calling from Gwagwalada. Unlike in the past, when in the 90s when Saddam Hussein annexed Iraq, the NATO and Western power formed coalition, a military coalition against Iraq, and they ended that annexation. But in the case of Ukraine and Russia, and that war is being fought at the expense of Ukraine, because Ukraine always suffer destruction and devastation. And the European Union is relaxing on applying military power, and they tend to go towards diplomatic solution. But yet it's not working. What would the ambassador say about it? Military application is not working, and neither the diplomatic solution. Then what else? And the war is affecting Ukraine negatively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's just take the second caller, and I will try and explain that. I'm sure you heard a bit of what he said. But let's hear this caller quickly. Hello.
Hello, Okurora, greet you.
You're welcome.
Our guest, good evening, sir. You're welcome to the studio.
All right.
This is calling from Niger State. If I'm not mistaken, I think I heard you saying that you would like to partner with Nigeria. That's a good one. But if I may ask, what did you see in us, and what is your benefit in return? You understand? And what is the benefit of the masses? You understand? That's what we want to know. Thank you very much.
What benefit are you talking? Like how Nigeria, what benefit do you get from Nigeria?
Yes, what benefit do you get from Nigeria?
Okay. I mean, what do we have to give in return, apparently, is what he's asking. Nigerians always want to know, like, we're not just collecting, that we have something to offer also. I guess that's his question, which you have kind of like responded to when I asked the previous question. And then Abu Bakr is concerned about the situation in Europe with Russia and Ukraine, saying that it doesn't look like the military intervention is working, doesn't look like dialogue is working at this point in time, and he's just really wondering what else can be done to just end the war.
It's a very good question, and it's a question we are asking ourselves every day, because we want to end the war. But for the war to end, as I mentioned, we have to put maximal pressure on Russia so that the terms of a settlement are acceptable for Ukraine, are preserving the principles of international law, Ukraine sovereignty, Ukraine territorial integrity, and Ukraine sovereignty, meaning that Ukraine must decide what they want to negotiate with Russia at the end of the conflict.
Yeah.
So basically, that's it. And if some big powers would put more pressure on Russia, actually, I must commend Nigeria, because Nigeria has been very consistent in its votes in the United Nations, always condemning the Russian aggression. That's very important. You know, if we have had, you have many, including great democracy in the world, which have not done that. They have abstained, and it's a very bad signal because we consider it's not that important, and it's not that serious that a permanent member of the Security Council like Russia trample the principle of the UN Charter like it is doing. And so, if we put more pressure on Russia, Russia will be obliged to negotiate on seriously, you know, which it hasn't done until now. So, voilà, that's and of course also the situation on the ground. That's why it's important to military support Ukraine, because the Russians are not advancing; they are advancing by meters.
Yeah.
And so if they say that there is no victory in sight for them, then they will have to negotiate. If they think that they can disrupt the front, then the war will continue. So this is why it is important.
Indeed. We're running out of time to just look at the question, because I've seen some of the comments around the trade tension. The EU also got a feel of it, even though it's been suspended by President Donald Trump to say, okay, we're giving a 90-day suspension, so perhaps concentrating on China at the moment, and also that the EU suspended, they meant to have like a 25% tariff, retaliatory tariff against the United States. So the question is, what happens next? It depends on is the EU waiting for the United States to have a definitive position as to what the trade situation is going to be like, or you're taking initiatives to be perhaps maybe
first,
give your conditions?
Of course, I mean this relationship between the EU and US is key, because it's the most important trade relationship in the world, second to none in terms of figures. Second, it's not imbalanced, as the Americans say. They have a total deficit in trade in goods and services with the EU of 3% of the total of the trade. So it's very much balanced, in fact. So really no reasons to impose tariffs on the European Union. So what we want to do is to try to have a win-win settlement, negotiating, and possibly negotiating a zero tariff agreement with the US. Now, we have prepared our retaliatory sanction, not sanction, but tariffs, smart tariffs, The US has suspended part of its tariffs, but still apply tariffs on steel and aluminium and a 10% tariffs. So we are ready to defend our interests, but we want to promote negotiation first. Try to find a negotiated settlement.
All right. Promote negotiations first. So, just before I let you off the hook, sir, yes, Europe Day, 9th of May, the entire month, a lot of conversation to be had, and the week, and we're just curious, culture, are we going to get a bit of the European culture during this celebration that is going on during the month? Is there going to be a festival of some sort, or it's just going to be looking at world issues and relations with Nigeria or something else?
Oh, it's a very good question. I would love to do this. I arrived recently and I'm looking around at the thriving cultural scene. For instance, the Lagos Biennale, we had contacts with them. It's a fantastic event every 2 years, and there are many more. And we are especially supporting book festivals, film festivals, around the country, not always big ones, but meaningful ones, because we think it's important to reach out to the youth, in particular in regions with many challenges, like in the north of the country, for instance, and we will keep on doing this. But we also have a new project that should be launched soon, regionally, to support cultural institutions, museum, festivals in West Africa, and in particular in Nigeria, to build more relationship networks among themselves and also with institutions in Europe. So yes, culture is also a key vector to get people from both sides of the Mediterranean together. Indeed
it is. Well, thank you very much, and particularly delighted with the talk about the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in Nigeria, and I'm sure that is something that we'll be following with keen interest to see how we stand to benefit tremendously from this. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Appreciate your time on the show.
Thanks to you, and thanks to all the audience for their reactions and questions. And again, our main interest here is to see a prosperous and stable Nigeria and sustainable country. Sustainable and thriving democracy. That's what our interest lies in.
I'm sure it warms the heart of every Nigerian, because we want everyone to come and feel that way and desire that for our country, because it's what we want also, a prosperous, flourishing, developing country. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Kimberly.
All right, and sorry I can't take any more phone calls, any more of your comments. I guess as the meeting to catch via the European Union Ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS. In the studio with me is Excellency Gautier Mignot. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, sir. All right, Abuja, go nowhere. There's still a whole lot more to talk about. Stay with us.